You step out into a snowy clearing in a dense forest. You hear the western winds howling. You can see a mossy stone gate. What will you do next? What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel and to the very first developer log for Descent. This is going to be a multiplayer role-playing game that I'm calling an experimental, decentralized, multi-user dungeon because I'm planning to use this project as a playground for experimenting with non-traditional game networking strategies. But we're going to start very small. In today's video, my only goal was to create a workflow from development to release, and today I'm releasing the very first prototype version of Descent. It's not exactly what I'd call a game yet, but it's a foundation we can build on top of. Let's go over the project so far. Okay, so I'm currently working with 3 projects, the first of which is the actual game engine Descent. Now this is written in the Rust programming language, and I'm using the cargo dependency management and build tool. And so while I'm developing, I can test my changes using cargo run to build and run the game, which is quite useful. Rust and Cargo come with a number of really cool developer tools, but ultimately I chose Rust as a programming language for its high performance and memory safety, 2 incredibly important traits for a game server. As far as the actual game goes, my initial goals for the first release were very simple. I wanted a game world consisting of at least 2 rooms and the ability for a player to navigate from one room to the next. A fairly straightforward goal. Now let's dive into the source code, which at the onset of this project is closed source. We might open it later, but for now I am happy to share with you how the Descent codebase evolves over time through these developer logs. I'm also planning to release and distribute each new prototype so that anyone hoping to follow along can download and play the game. Okay, so diving into the main file, we have the entry point in the main function where we're running an intro, we're starting the game, and then we're running an outro. Now the intro is just some ASCII art and some information about the game and its version. The outro is again some ASCII art and a way to follow along with the game. So this is pretty straightforward. These are each functionalized. The start function contains the entire game. So if we jump down, we have some utilities here. These are really just for printing regular items to the command line. So for instance, if you enter a command that's not recognized, we have a function for printing that information to the screen. We have a line break. Yeah, these are supporting functions. And the rest of the magic is in the start function. Is that I think that might be the only other function in the game. If I scroll, yeah, so that's it. Right now, the entire game is essentially running from a single function. Okay, so we have the game state here. We have a single variable called location, and this is the only thing that we need to track about the player character. So I'm initializing the player's location at a place called the gate. We have a variable for storing player commands, and then we kick off the game loop. And in each cycle of the game loop, we start by setting the scene, we accept a command from the player, and then we update the game world based on their command, based on the action that the player takes. And the cycle repeats itself. As you can see here, when we set the scene, there are only 2 locations, and we're currently defining the game world in an if-else structure, which is very much not ideal, but minimal. We only have 2 locations, the gate and the entry. We prompt the player for some action, we get a command from them, then we have this match statement that will match depending on the string the character passes. If the character gives us a command that we don't recognize, we print the command not recognized message. Otherwise, the player can exit the game, right? They can leave. If they exit, we'll break out of the loop and we will jump into the outro. If the player types help, we have some help messaging to let the player know what available actions that they have in any given room. And then, depending on which room the character is currently in, they can enter a command to select one of that room's exits to travel through. In this case, there are only 2 rooms and only 2 possible exits. And this is great because it really closely resembles the first game that I ever tried to make in a programming 101 class so many years ago, with a huge nested mess of if and else if statements, just like this. And it's not efficient, it's not extensible, but it works and it achieves our very simple goals. So let's now jump into the game itself. I'll enter cargo run to build and run the game, and here we get the welcome. Welcome mortals to The Descent, an experimental, decentralized multi-user dungeon by Christian Westbrook. Okay, so we have these line breaks that present the player with text from the game, or from the game world, I should say, the simulation, if you can call it that. You step out into a snowy clearing in a dense forest. You hear the western winds howling. You can see a mossy stone gate. What will you do next? If I enter help at this point, well, I guess let's enter some garbage first. So I'll enter a command that's obviously not handled. We get the response, you contemplate it, but can't bring yourself to do it. Command not recognized. And then we repeat the description of the room that we are currently in. Okay, so what will you do next? If I type help, I should be able to see a list of actions that I can currently take. You pause to think deeply about your options. We have the option gate, to enter the mossy stone gate, or exit, to leave the game. Let's test out the exit. So when I exit, we get this message, flee while you can, mortal, from the descent. Follow along at youtube.com/@descentmud. Okay, very cool. All right, let's run again. What will you do next? Okay, so the other option is to enter the gate. So if I type gate, and my entire goal in this initial version was simply to have the ability to step from one room to another. So we'll see how this works. I enter gate, and yeah, it says you heave the stone gate aside and climb underground. It slams shut behind you. You're standing in a cramped wooden parlor. The floor is cluttered with overturned chairs and tables. You can see a wooden door and a stone gate. Okay, so we have the stone gate that we came through, and there's another wooden door. And I'll actually pause the gameplay here so that anybody who wants to can download the game and see what happens next for themselves. Okay, so once the game is ready for release, I can run cargo build with the release flag, and cargo will create an optimized binary for me. Here in target release, we have the descent executable, and this executable is exactly what I am releasing and distributing, combining it with a short and sweet README and a license file for non-commercial, non-derivative gameplay, and bundling those into a zip file and hosting them on GitHub in a Descent releases repository, which was necessary because it looks like on GitHub you can't have public releases on a private repository. So while Descent is closed source, I'll use this Descent releases space for releasing versions of the prototype. But in the future, if we ever open Descent up, make it open source, then you'll be able to download releases from there. Now, the other project that I have is Descent Blog. This is a Jekyll website. Jekyll is a static site generator, and it's a pretty simple web page explaining what the Descent project is and showing you how you can download it and play. Here is the very bare bones project webpage that I've stood up, but notice the releases section where we have a link to the 0.1.0 prototype that I've been playing in this video. And if you follow this link, if you click on this link, you will receive a zip file from GitHub, from the Descent Releases GitHub project that'll contain the Descent executable, a license, and a README. You can extract that folder and then double click on descent.exe to run the game. Here is the project page for Descent. Right now this is private. We do have one release, 0.1.0. Over here I have the Descent Devlog project. This is a public project. This has the Jekyll website for the blog, the web page where I plan to post written updates about the project and to host links for people to download and play the game. And then here we have Descent Releases. This is also a public project, and in this project I'm actually hosting the releases of Descent publicly. So if you head over to releases here, we have Descent v0.1.0 under assets. Here you have the prototype zip archive, and this link is exactly the link that I've embedded onto the website right here. And I've also created a YouTube channel where I will upload this video, and I will upload updates to the game as I make them. I'll probably have lots of small or short videos rather than less frequent large videos. I plan to make small incremental changes and updates to the game over time, and yeah, those little changes are what I hope to record and share and capture here. And I'm really excited to share the journey with you because I'm really interested in seeing exactly how some of these ideas that I'm having play out and interact with each other. I think it's going to be a great time. Okay, there's one more funny thing I want to show you, and it's something I just didn't anticipate, which will happen probably frequently, but perhaps my first bug. So here is the game running in the command line. This is what the game looks like if you double click the executable. So if you download the game and you run it, you'll have on Windows, you'll have a command prompt open. It'll look just like this. So you can type gate and move from room 1 to room 2, objective accomplished. And from here you can keep playing to find out what happens next. But if you exit the game, instead of getting the nice message that I created to try to show people where they can follow along with development, with the development progress, instead the game closes immediately. So yeah, you don't get to see the goodbye message. And so yeah, I'm thinking that is my very first bug. And I think that's everything I wanted to share about the very first prototype release of Descent. I really enjoyed kicking off the game and making this video, and I hope you've enjoyed watching it. Don't forget to hit that like button and to subscribe for more Descent content. Until next time, this is Christian signing off.